Listen carefully, because this is not a normal story. A powerful lord, two dying supernatural twins, and the nanny who walked in and exposed a secret so dark, it nearly destroyed their entire bloodline. This is the day everything changed. I love knowing where my listeners are, so before this story unfolds, drop your location in the comment. Blackthorn Hall stood on a cliff like a lonely giant, its tall black towers cutting into the clouds. Fog wrapped around its stone walls the way sadness wrapped around its owner, Lord Caelan Blackthorn. Inside the giant fortress, the halls were silent. No laughter. No music. No signs of life except the sound of Caelan's boots tapping across the cold marble floor. He was not an ordinary man. He was the ruler of the Shadow Dominion, the oldest supernatural bloodline in the realm. His power could make mountains tremble. His voice could silence storms. His enemies feared him more than death itself. But none of his ancient power could help the two people he loved most. His daughters Ustra and Naira. 5 years old. Fragile. Growing weaker. When Caelan entered their room, he paused at the door, watching them. The nursery had once been warm, painted with bright colors by their late mother. Now it looked empty, the colors faded like old memories. Two small beds sat on opposite sides of the room. Two thin bodies lay on them, barely moving. Ustra, the older twin by 3 minutes, stared blankly at the ceiling. Her once bright golden eyes were dim, as if someone had stolen the sun from them. Naira, smaller and quieter, lay curled under a heavy blanket, shivering even though the room was warm. A cold knot tightened in Caelan's chest. He walked to Ustra first. "Little star," he whispered, brushing a strand of silver hair from her forehead. "How do you feel today?" Ustra blinked slowly. "Tired. Papa." Her voice was soft, like a candle flame struggling to stay alive. Caelan swallowed. His hand hovered over hers, scared to touch her, scared that even his cool vampire-like skin might hurt her weakened body. He moved to Naira next. She didn't open her eyes when he approached. He sat on the edge of her bed. "Naira, my shadow blossom. I'm here." Her lips trembled. Cold. Caelan felt something break inside him. Cold. Always cold. Always fading. Despite the warm fire burning across the room, Naira's skin felt as cold as snow. Ustra wasn't cold, she felt empty, like her light had no place to shine. That was the tragedy. One child drowning in cold. The other fading in silence. Caelan had spent 5 years trying to save them. 5 years calling healers, witches, warlocks, elemental doctors, ancient spirits. 5 years watching treatments fail. And now the great hallways of Blackthorn felt like a tomb, his daughter's tomb. A soft knock came at the door. He didn't turn. "You may enter," he said, voice hard and sharp. His second-in-command, Veros, stepped inside. A tall man with grey skin and eyes like smoke. He bowed deeply. "My lord, the last spectral healer requests an audience." "She believes." "No," Caelan interrupted. "We have tried them all." Veros hesitated. "But my lord," she claims. "No," Caelan's voice thundered. The candle flames flickered violently. "Leave it." Veros bowed again. "As you wish." The door closed, and Caelan let out a long breath. He looked at his daughters again. What if they don't live? What if they fade away like their mother? He closed his eyes. The memory of that night, the night the twins were born, returned like a blade cutting his heart. His wife, Liara, a gentle human healer, had died during childbirth. One moment she was smiling, holding his hand. The next moment she was gone. The twins had cried only once, a weak sound, then gone silent. The healers said their powers never awakened because the trauma was too big. Their mother's death froze their magic. A curse born from grief. Caelan pressed his palms against his eyes, trying to calm the storm inside him. Ustra's quiet voice broke the silence. "Papa, will we get better?" Caelan froze. Naira whispered next. "Will we die?" Something inside Caelan shattered completely. "No." His voice came out harsher than he intended. He knelt between their two beds. "You will not die. I will find a way. I swear it." Ustra watched him with sad eyes. Naira's small fingers reached out to him. "Don't be sad, Papa," she whispered. That was the cruelest pain of all. His dying daughters comforting him. He lowered his head, shoulders trembling not from weakness, but from a 200-year-old heartbreak. "My little ones. I would burn the world to keep you alive." But he had run out of ideas. Run out of hope. Until the letter came. A simple envelope left at the gate by a human messenger. Kaylin hadn't bothered opening it until late that night. It looked simple, almost plain, with no magical markings. Inside was a note. "I can help your daughters. I do not offer magic. I offer understanding. Mara Wren, trauma specialist." Something about the handwriting, calm and steady, made him pause. He looked toward the sleeping twins. His ancient heart beat once, painfully. Maybe, just maybe. Hope flickered. The next morning, a storm rolled in. Blackthorn Hall shook with thunder. Lightning flashed against the towering windows as if the sky itself were warning Kaylin not to trust strangers. Yet he stood in the grand hall, waiting. Veros approached him cautiously. "My lord, this woman is human. I know. She has no magical abilities. I know. She has no supernatural credentials. No royal training. Her documents are extremely ordinary." Kaylin's jaw tightened, but he didn't look at Veros. "I know." Veros exhaled sharply. "Then why are you hiring her?" Kaylin stared at the heavy wooden door across the hall. "Because," he whispered, "she is the only one who didn't promise miracles." Before Veros could answer, the enormous iron doors groaned open. Wind slammed into the hall, blowing Kaylin's long black coat behind him like wings. A woman stepped inside, soaked from the rain. She was shockingly normal. A simple grey sweater. Dark jeans. Wet hair tied in a messy braid. A backpack slung over one shoulder. Her cheeks were pink from the cold. Her eyes, clear, steady, grey, darted around the entry hall in quiet awe. "Lord Kaylin Blackthorn?" she asked, voice nervous but brave. Kaylin stepped forward slowly. He was a tall, terrifying figure, pale skin, sharp jawline, eyes glowing faintly like dying stars. When he moved, the shadows seemed to move too, as if bowing to him. Most humans froze under his gaze. But Mara Wren didn't. She took a shaky breath and smiled politely. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." Kaylin studied her carefully. "You are the one who sent the letter?" "Yes." "You claim you can help my daughters?" She swallowed but nodded. "Yes. I believe I can." Veros snorted. "You? A human?" Mara turned to him. "Yes. A human who has helped many trauma-affected children." Kaylin lifted a hand, silencing Veros. He looked down at her. "Miss Wren, you understand who I am?" "Yes," Mara said. "You're the ruler of the Shadow Dominion. A powerful supernatural lord. And you know what I am?" She hesitated. "A being who is not entirely human." That answer made Kaylin smile for the first time in years, cold, amused. "Clever," he murmured. Mara looked at him straight on. "I don't need to know more. My work deals with children, not kings." Veros inhaled sharply. The guards stiffened. No one ever spoke to Kaylin like that. But Kaylin didn't get angry. No. He felt something he hadn't felt in ages. Interest. "Follow me," he said. He led her up the long staircase, through towering halls, until they reached the twins' room. Kaylin stopped at the door. "Before you enter, you must understand. They are fragile. Extremely." Mara nodded gently. "I will be careful." Kaylin opened the door. Astra lifted her head weakly. Naira pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Mara froze. For a moment, Kaylin expected her to cry or gasp or turn around. But instead, she knelt beside Astra and smiled softly. "Hi. I'm Mara. Your father invited me to see how I can help." Astra frowned. "You're not a healer." "No," Mara said kindly. "I'm something else." Naira peeked from her blanket. "What?" Mara tilted her head, thinking. "I'm someone who listens." Both girls blinked. "Listens to what?" Astra whispered. "To you, Mara said simply. To what you love. What you fear. What you dream about. Things that the grown-ups sometimes forget to ask. Kaelin bit his lip. Her words struck him harder than he expected. Astra whispered, nobody asks what we love. Mara smiled. Then I'm the first. She sat cross-legged on the floor. Astra, what makes you feel happy? Astra hesitated. The stars. And you, Naira? Mara asked softly. Naira whispered, forest sounds, like leaves and birds. Mara clapped her hands lightly. Perfect. We can work with that. Kaelin frowned. Work? With stars and forests? Mara looked up at him calmly. Yes. Children don't heal through rules or rituals. They heal through connection. Through the things that make them feel alive. Kaelin's chest tightened. He hadn't thought about that. Not once. Mara continued, before I do anything, Lord Blackthorn, I need to ask you something. Kaelin raised an eyebrow. Ask me? Yes, Mara said. What do your daughters need most from you? Kaelin opened his mouth, then stopped. What did they need? Magic? Medicine? Protection? Or something simpler? He finally answered in a voice so quiet the room barely caught it. They need a father. Mara smiled gently. Good. Then let's start there. The twins looked at their father with wide eyes. For the first time in years, Kaelin stepped closer to their beds, not as a ruler, but as a dad. Astra whispered, Papa, are you staying? Kaelin knelt between them. Yes. I am staying. Naira reached out her cold hand, and Kaelin wrapped his around it. Mara watched the scene with soft eyes. Then she stood. I'll return tomorrow, she said, pulling her backpack onto her shoulder. But before I go, I need to tell you one important thing. Kaelin looked up. What is it? Mara met his eyes with a steady, brave gaze. Your daughters aren't dying, Lord Blackthorn. They're hurting. And hurt can be healed. Kaelin felt his ancient heart beat hard, one solid thump of hope. Mara smiled again. And I promise. I will help them heal. The next morning, Blackthorn Hall was strangely quiet. Even the ravens perched on the high stone arches didn't croak their usual greetings. It was as if the whole castle was waiting, holding its breath. Kaelin stood outside the twins' room, his long black coat brushing the floor as he paced. He hadn't slept. Instead, he stayed awake, replaying Mara Wren's words in his mind. They don't need magic. They need connection. No healer had ever said that. Not once. Not in 5 long, painful years. A soft creak echoed through the hallway. Kaelin turned sharply. Mara appeared at the end of the hall, walking with quick, small steps. Her damp hair from yesterday was now dry and tied back neatly. She carried her backpack again, though it looked suspiciously full, stuffed, even as though she had filled it with everything she owned. Kaelin narrowed his eyes. You brought supplies? Of course, Mara said, stopping in front of him. If your daughters like stars and forests, then that's what we're going to give them. Kaelin stared at the bulging backpack. You cannot fit a forest in there. Mara grinned. Watch me. Without waiting another second, she pushed the door open and walked straight in. Inside, Astra and Naira looked up, surprised. Both girls were propped up on pillows, their thin bodies covered in blankets. They were pale, but their eyes held a tiny sparkle, a spark that hadn't been there before. Good morning, Astra. Good morning, Naira, Mara greeted softly. Astra smiled shyly. You came back. Of course I did, Mara said. I told you I would. Naira peeked out from her blanket. What's in the bag? Mara pretended to gasp loudly. Oh no. It appears you've discovered my secret. Kaelin crossed his arms, one eyebrow raised. This should be interesting. Mara motioned for the girls to sit up straighter. Then she unzipped the bag dramatically. First, she pulled out long swaths of shimmering fabric, deep blue, purple, and silver. They glowed faintly in the daylight like pieces of the night sky. Astra's eyes widened. Stars. That's right, Mara said, smiling. Your very own sky. Next, she pulled out a wooden box filled with soft moss, smooth stones, dried leaves, and small pieces of tree bark. Naira gasped quietly. Forest. Exactly for you, Mara whispered. Kaylin blinked once, slowly. You brought dirt into my fortress. Mara didn't even look at him. It's clean dirt. There is no such thing, Kaylin murmured under his breath. But Astra and Naira were already sitting up straighter. Their eyes had come alive. Mara stood on a small chair she dragged to the center of the room. She pinned the fabric to the ceiling beams with simple clips she'd brought. Blue silk rippled overhead like a quiet ocean sky. Silver cloth hung like moonlight. Astra stared, mouth open. It's beautiful, she whispered. Mara laughed softly. This is just step one. She spread the moss and stones on a tray beside Naira's bed. She arranged the bark into tiny tree shapes, letting a few leaves fall gently onto the tray. Naira reached out slowly, touching the soft green moss with trembling fingers. It feels alive, she whispered. Mara leaned in. It is alive. Just like you. Kaylin felt something twist inside him, not fear this time, but something almost painful. Hope. What is all this meant to do? He asked quietly. Mara didn't turn to him. She sat on the floor between both beds and smiled up at him as if the answer were obvious. It makes them feel something again. Astra lifted her hand toward the silk sky. It looks like the stories Mama used to tell. Kaylin froze. Naira whispered, Mama said the stars were alive. That they listened. Mara's eyes softened. Then let's let them listen today. She reached into her bag again and placed a small speaker on the floor. She turned it on, and gentle music filled the room, soft flutes, humming wind, a warm heartbeat-like rhythm. Astra inhaled slowly. Naira leaned her head back, eyes closing peacefully. Kaylin had never seen them so relaxed. Mara sat cross-legged between them and spoke softly. Astra, I want you to imagine something for me. Imagine you're in the sky, floating, flying. You're painting stars. Each star is a wish. Astra's thin fingers twitched slightly, as if reaching for something invisible. What would your first star be? Mara asked. Astra whispered, I want to walk with Naira. Mara nodded gently. Then paint that star. Astra lifted her hand, slowly, painfully, but with purpose. Her fingers brushed the air beneath the silk ceiling. Something flickered. A tiny spark of faint gold light shimmered around her fingertips, barely visible, but real. Kaylin's heart slammed against his ribs. Magic. Her magic. Naira saw it and smiled weakly. My sister is glowing. Astra giggled a small, fragile laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. Mara placed her hand over Astra's gently. Good job, little star. Then she turned to Naira. Now you. Imagine you're in a forest. You're strong. You're brave. You protect the trees. Naira swallowed. What do I do? You place your hands in the earth, Mara said softly, motioning to the moss tray. Go on. Try it. Naira slowly pressed her tiny hands into the moss. Her eyes closed. A deep breath. A pause. A faint shadow ripple beneath her fingers. Not a dangerous shadow, soft, gentle, like a leaf falling in darkness. Kaylin stared so hard his eyes watered. He blinked, shocked. Her power. Her shadow magic. It had moved. The girls didn't notice their father's trembling hands. Mara did. Her voice was gentle. Lord Blackthorn? Are you all right? Kaylin could barely force a whisper out. They have not done this before. Mara nodded. Because no one helped them feel safe enough to try. Astra reached toward him. Papa, look. I made a star. Naira's voice followed. And I made the forest move. Kaylin lowered his head, unable to speak. His shoulders shook with emotion he'd hidden for years. Mara lowered her voice to a whisper. This is only the beginning. 2 days passed, and the nursery transformed even more. The ceiling was now a swirling galaxy of fabric stars. The walls glowed softly with lanterns Mara hung. Naira's forest tray had grown, now 3 trays filled with leaves, soil, and tiny wooden animal figures. Every morning, Astra and Naira waited for Mara with bright eyes. Kaylin didn't hide in the shadows anymore. He sat in a chair near the door, pretending to read ancient scrolls, but mostly watching. On the third morning, something extraordinary happened. Mara walked in with a new item, a small crystal orb no bigger than a plum. It reflected light like trapped moonbeams. Astra gasped. "What is that?" "This," Mara said proudly, "is a star orb. It reacts to emotion. If you're happy, it glows. If you're scared, it dims. If you're brave, it shines brighter." Naira whispered, "Can I touch it?" "You both can." Mara placed the orb on a soft cloth between the twins. Kaylin leaned forward slightly, uneasy. "Is it dangerous?" Mara shook her head. "No. Just sensitive." The twins stared at the orb with curiosity. Astra reached out first. Her small hand hovered above it. The orb flickered faintly like a tiny heartbeat. Astra's lips parted in awe. "It feels warm." Naira touched it next. The orb pulsed brighter, a faint glow spreading across the cloth. Mara smiled. "Good. Now I want you both to try something. Astra, imagine the sky again. Naira, imagine your forest. But this time, don't just imagine it." She leaned closer. "Feel it." Astra swallowed. "Feel it where?" "In your heart." Naira nodded. "Okay." The room grew quiet. Astra closed her eyes. Her fingers twitched. A faint shimmer, gold, gentle, danced around her fingertips. Naira pressed her hands into the moss. The shadows beneath the tray shifted like they were breathing. Kaylin stood slowly, unable to control himself. As Astra and Naira focused, the orb glowed brighter, brighter, brighter. Until Astra gasped. Naira froze. The orb flashed with a sudden burst of light, sharp, blue-white, cold as winter. A wave of icy air blasted outward. The room temperature dropped instantly. Frost crawled up the walls. Astra cried out and fell back onto her pillows, eyes wide with fear. Naira collapsed forward, trembling violently, her lips turning blue. Kaylin roared, "Enough." He rushed forward so fast the air cracked. Mara backed away in shock. I didn't, what happened?" Kaylin reached Naira and placed a shaking hand on her back. "She is freezing," he growled. Her power turned inward. Naira's teeth chattered violently. Frost spread across her eyelashes. Astra," she whimpered. Astra reached out helplessly. "Naira." Mara knelt beside Kaylin, fear flooding her face. "Tell me what to do." Kaylin's eyes glowed bright silver. "You already did too much." His voice was so cold Mara felt it in her bones. "You awakened something inside them they were not ready for." "I didn't mean to." "You should not have touched magic at all." Naira collapsed into a cold shock so violent that the frost on her eyelashes began to crack. Kaylin lifted her, pressing her against his chest to warm her with his supernatural body heat. But she kept shaking. Astra cried out, tears spilling down her face. "Papa, help her." Mara felt guilt slam into her chest like a blade. "Lord Blackthorn, I didn't know." "No human would," Kaylin snapped. "Magic is not a toy." Their powers were frozen for a reason. He glared at her, his pupils narrowing, his fangs showing. "You endangered my children." Mara recoiled, tears springing to her eyes. "No. I was trying to help. And you failed." He stood, Naira weak and pale in his arms. "Leave," he commanded. Astra gasped. "No. Don't make her leave." Kaylin ignored her. His voice went deadly quiet. "Mara Wren, pack your things. You are done here." Mara's throat tightened. She looked at Astra's crying face. Naira's shaking body. Kaylin's cold fury. "I'm not leaving," Mara whispered. Kaylin turned slowly, rage burning in his eyes. "What did you say?" "I'm not leaving your daughters," Mara said, standing her ground. Her voice shook, but her eyes did not. "I'm not running away from them when they need help. You will leave my fortress now." "No," Mara repeated loudly. Naira is in shock. Astra is terrified. They need stability. They need calm. They need someone who is not panicking. Kaylin stepped closer, towering over her. "And what makes you think I am panicking?" Mara pointed at his trembling hands, the hands holding Naira. This. Kaelin looked down, stunned. Mara lowered her voice. You are scared, Lord Blackthorn. And that's okay. But fear won't save them. Connection will. Kaelin's furious expression didn't fade, but something inside him cracked, a tiny fracture of doubt. Mara touched his arm gently. Let me help Naira. Let me help Astra. I made a mistake, but I can fix it. Please. Don't push me away now. Kaelin stared at her for a long, suffocating moment. Then Naira whimpered weakly in his arms. Mara whispered, she needs warmth, but not just from your magic. She needs your love. Your presence. Kaelin bowed his head. Finally. He sank to his knees beside Astra's bed, still holding Naira, and whispered, tell me, what do I do? Mara exhaled slowly, wiping tears from her cheeks. She moved carefully behind him and placed a hand on his back. You hold them both, she whispered. Hold them and let them feel you. Kaelin gathered Astra into his other arm, pulling both trembling girls close. A strange light filled the room, not magic, but emotion. Naira's shivering slowed. Astra relaxed against his chest. The frost on the walls faded. Mara watched, tears sliding silently down her face. Kaelin held his daughters and whispered, voice breaking, I'm here. I'm here, little ones. I will not let anything hurt you. Astra sniffled. Papa. Naira mumbled, warm. Slowly, slowly, they calmed. Mara sank onto the floor, exhausted but relieved. Kaelin didn't look up, but his voice softened. You stay, he said quietly. For now. Mara nodded. And for the first time, they were a team. Night fell over Blackthorn Hall like a thick blanket of shadow. Outside, the wind howled against the stone towers, rattling windows as though something ancient was trying to claw its way inside. Inside the nursery, the air was strangely still, so still that every small sound felt loud. Kaelin sat in a large armchair near the window, Astra curled against one side of him and Naira nestled on the other. Both girls were finally breathing calmly, their earlier crisis fading into uneasy sleep. Mara sat near the fireplace, staring into the flames, her knees pulled to her chest. She looked shaken, pale, exhausted, and filled with guilt. Her hands rubbed together restlessly, like she was washing invisible blood off them. Kaelin's voice broke the silence. Quiet. Controlled. But sharp as a blade. Explain to me exactly what happened. Mara lifted her head. Her eyes looked raw, as if she'd been holding back tears for hours. I pushed too far, she whispered. Astra and Naira connected with their emotions, and with that connection, their powers woke up for a moment. But they're not used to it. They don't know how to handle it yet. Kaelin stared at her, unreadable. You nearly killed them. Mara flinched. I know, she said, voice cracking. But please believe me, I didn't intend to hurt them. I wanted to help. And I still do. Kaelin did not look convinced. His arms tightened around his daughters as if shielding them from her. Mara's voice softened. I understand your anger, but I can't walk away from them. You should have walked away the moment the orb reacted, Kaelin snapped. You should have stopped. Mara shook her head. No. That moment, when Astra's light and Naira's shadows moved, that was the first true sign of healing. They want to use their abilities. They want to feel something other than fear. Kaelin's jaw clenched. And when they nearly froze to death, did they want that too? Mara lowered her eyes. No, that was my mistake. For a long, stretching moment, they sat in tense silence. The storm outside grew louder. A sharp crack echoed through the walls, thunder or something else. The air inside the room turned cold again, but not dangerously so. Just cold enough to make the children burrow closer to their father. Finally, Kaelin asked quietly, why did you not run? Mara blinked. What? When Naira went into shock, Kaelin said slowly, and when my temper slipped. His voice thinned. Any sane human would run screaming from this fortress. Mara looked down at her hands. I didn't run because they needed me, she whispered. Astra was crying. Naira was numbing. And you, she hesitated. You looked terrified. Kaylin stiffened. I was not. Mara interrupted gently. You were. You're their father. Anyone can see that. Even a human like me. Kaylin inhaled sharply through his nose. He didn't respond. Astra stirred against him and whispered sleepily, Papa, don't be mad at Mara. Kaylin froze. Naira murmured, she helped us. She didn't mean to hurt us. Mara's breath hitched. Kaylin closed his eyes. His daughter's voices had always been his weakness. Their innocence, their trust, it cut deeper than any sword or spell. Astra opened her eyes slightly, golden irises dim but focused. Papa. I saw stars, real stars, when Mara helped me. Naira, half asleep, added, and I felt the forest. It was warm, like Mama. That final word made Kaylin's entire body jolt. Mama. Liara. Memories stabbed through him, Liara laughing as she painted the nursery wall, Liara holding her belly gently, Liara whispering stories of the cosmos to Astra and forest spirits to Naira, even before they were born. Liara had been warmth in a cold world. And for the first time since her death, someone else had brought warmth into the halls of Blackthorn. Mara. Mara watched the emotions flicker across Kaylin's face. Your daughters love you, she said softly. But they're trapped in grief. They froze the moment Liara died. Just like you. Kaylin's eyes shot open, sharp, glowing, wounded. Choose your next words carefully, he warned. But Mara didn't back down. You think you've protected them all these years, she said softly. But the truth is, you've been frozen, too. Emotionally. They feel your grief, your fear, your distance. Children always feel what adults try to hide. Kaylin stared at her, stunned, furious, shaken. The wind outside slammed against the window. Mara looked at the girls. They were afraid to use their powers because they were afraid to lose control. And they were afraid to lose you. Kaylin swallowed hard. I have never. You have never let yourself be vulnerable, Mara finished gently. Silence. Astra touched Kaylin's cheek softly. Papa, don't be cold. Be warm like Mama used to be. Naira whispered, we need your warmth. Kaylin looked at his daughters in shock. Mara stood slowly, stepping closer. Let me show you something, she said quietly. She placed her hand carefully over one of Astra's hands and one of Naira's. They both stirred but didn't pull away. Feel their breathing, Mara said. Stay connected. Don't pull back. They don't need their king, they need their father. Kaylin hesitated. Then, for the first time, he allowed his cold aura to soften, suppressed his supernatural chill, and let himself be warm. A soft heat spread from his chest, flowing into the girls he held. Astra sighed with relief. Naira snuggled deeper into his arms. Mara felt tears prick her eyes. That, she whispered, is what will save them. Kaylin stared at the sleeping twins, then at the human woman before him. His voice was barely audible. You may stay. The next morning, the storm had passed. Soft sunlight crept through the high windows, turning the room golden. The twins were still asleep, curled up close to each other like small animals seeking warmth. Kaylin remained awake all night, sitting beside them, holding their hands. He hadn't moved once, hadn't looked away once. When Mara entered the room, Kaylin spoke without turning. You were right, he said quietly. They respond to warmth. They respond to connection. Mara approached but kept her voice gentle. They respond to you. Kaylin nodded slowly, like a man finally understanding something he should have learned long ago. Mara walked toward the girls. We begin again today. Carefully. Kaylin eyed her suspiciously. No more orbs. Definitely no more orbs, Mara agreed quickly. He almost smiled. Almost. The girls woke up as the sun grew brighter. Astra yawned and stretched weakly. Naira rubbed her eyes, blinking slowly like a waking kitten. Good morning, Mara said softly. Astra smiled. You're still here. Naira whispered, Papa stayed with us all night. Kaylin cleared his throat. I supervised. Mara hid a small grin. You stayed because they needed you. Kaylin scowled lightly. That is what I said. He looked away but couldn't hide the slight blush in his pale cheeks. Mara clapped her hands. All right. Today we're going to do something very important. Astra perked up. Magic? No, Mara said quickly. Absolutely not. Not yet. Kaylin nodded approvingly. Mara sat between the beds. Today, we learn to breathe. The twins blinked at her. Breathe? Naira asked. We already do that. Mara smiled. Do you? Or do you only breathe because your body forces you to? Breathing can be powerful. It connects you to your emotions. Kaylin frowned. Breathing is not magic. It is when you do it right, Mara replied. She demonstrated. In through your nose, out through your mouth, slow, steady, soft. Astra mimicked her. Naira followed. Kaylin hesitated, then joined in too, though he tried to pretend he wasn't. Good, Mara praised. Now, Astra, what color is your breath? Astra looked surprised. Color? Yes, Mara said. Imagine it. Astra thought for a moment. Gold. Good. And Naira? Naira closed her eyes. I think, dark purple. Like shadows. Perfect. Mara nodded. Now breathe out the colors. Let the room see them. Astra giggled. That's silly. Maybe, Mara said, but sometimes silly things help heal sad hearts. Astra breathed out slowly, imagining gold swirling into the air. Naira breathed out purple like soft smoke. Something gentle happened. The air in the room warmed not with magic, but with imagination. Mara smiled proudly. See? No frost. No cold shock. No fear. Kaylin blinked. They are calmer. Mara nodded. Because they are connected. She placed her hands on the beds gently. Now we try something new. Astra and Naira looked excited but calm. Mara placed her hands palms up. Astra, place your hand on mine. Naira, do the same with my other. They hesitated. Kaylin stiffened, ready to intervene at the slightest sign of danger. Astra placed her small warm hand onto Mara's left. Naira placed her cold hand onto Mara's right. Good, Mara whispered. Now feel my hands. Not with your powers. With your heart. The twins closed their eyes. Mara breathed slowly. Astra slowly matched her rhythm. Naira did the same. Mara looked at Kaylin. Join us. Kaylin's eyebrows shot up. I what? Join us, Mara repeated calmly. Your daughters need you included. Not watching from the shadows. Kaylin hesitated. Astra whispered, please, Papa. Naira reached for him with one hand. Come. Kaylin's heart twisted. He moved slowly to sit beside Mara. She hesitated, then gently took his hand in hers and placed Astra's small hand on top of his. Then she took his other hand and placed Naira's hand on it. A circle. A family circle. Mara exhaled. Now we breathe together. And they did. Slow. Steady. Connected. For the first time since Lyara's death, the emotional ice between all four of them cracked. Astra's breath grew warmer. Naira's trembling stopped. Kaylin's aura softened completely. Mara felt tears rise behind her eyes but held them back. Then something unexpected happened. Astra whispered, Papa. I feel warm inside. Naira whispered, I feel strong. Kaylin stared at them in shock. Mara nodded proudly. Because you're safe. And when you're safe, your magic will one day come gently, not in fear. Kaylin looked at her with something new in his eyes. Respect. Hope. And something else, something he hadn't felt in years. Gratitude. Astra lifted her head. Papa. Mara, can we try to stand today? Just try. Naira nodded eagerly. Yes, just try. Kaylin opened his mouth to refuse. But Mara placed a hand on his arm. Let them try, she whispered. Not to use magic. Not to be powerful. Just to be brave. Kaylin swallowed hard. All right, he said quietly. We try. Mara helped Astra first. Hold on to me, little star. Astra wrapped her arms around Mara's neck. Mara stood slowly, carefully lifting the girl to her feet. Astra's legs shook, thin and weak, but she didn't collapse. Kaylin froze. Astra was standing. Even if only for a moment, she was standing. Naira's eyes grew wide with determination. Me next. Kaylin lifted Naira gently, supporting her weight as she placed her feet on the floor. Her knees bent, trembled, straightened. Naira gasped. Papa. I'm standing. Kaylin's eyes burned with tears he didn't wipe away. Mara steadied them both, smiling through her own tears. See, she whispered. You're stronger than you think. Astra took one shaky step. Naira took a small one too. Only inches. Only moments. But enough. Kaylin knelt, pulling both girls into his arms as tears finally escaped his eyes. My brave daughters, my precious girls. I see you. Mara looked at the three of them, father and daughters wrapped together with warmth, and her heart swelled. This was the breakthrough. Not magic. Not rituals. Not ancient power. Connection. Love. The first real step toward healing. And though none of them knew it yet, the true awakening was still to come. For the first time in years, sunlight felt alive inside Blackthorn Hall. It flooded through the tall windows of the nursery, filling the silken sky above Astra's bed with glowing gold and making the moss in Naira's forest trays glisten like morning dew. The twins were sitting upright on their beds, brighter and more alert than Kaylin had ever seen them. Astra's cheeks had gained a faint healthy color, and Naira's eyes no longer looked weighed down by a constant cold. Mara walked briskly into the room with a small basket tucked under one arm. It smelled faintly of pine and something sweet. She placed it gently on a table. Astra bounced a little in excitement. Is that for us? Naira leaned forward. What's inside? Mara winked. Something special for today. Kaylin, standing behind them with his arms crossed, raised an eyebrow. Define special. We agreed, no unexpected magic. No magic, Mara promised. Only imagination. Imagination, Kaylin muttered, is the most dangerous form of magic. Mara shot him a mischievous smile. That means it's perfect for children. Kaylin looked like he wanted to argue, but Astra leaned toward him, eyes shining. Papa, I like imagination. Naira nodded earnestly. Me too. Kaylin sighed. Very well. Continue. Mara opened the basket. Inside were small items, painted stones, tiny wooden stars, little shadow-shaped cutouts, bits of soft fabric, and delicate feathers dyed in soft blues and purples. She picked up a painted star and handed it to Astra. Astra, she said gently, today we'll practice something important. Not magic, just trust. Trust in your body. Trust in your spirit. Trust in your new strength. Astra's smile faltered. What if I fall? You will, Mara said softly. And that's okay. Everyone falls. What matters is that you get back up. Astra swallowed nervously but nodded. Mara turned next to Naira, handing her a feather. And you, Naira, will practice balance. Balance with your breath. Balance with your courage. Naira held the feather like it was fragile treasure. I'll try. That's all I ask. The training begins. Mara cleared the center of the nursery floor, pushing aside cushions, toys, and trays. She spread a padded mat down, a safety precaution, and smiled encouragingly at the twins. Astra, she said, you first. Astra's fingers clenched around the wooden star, but she took a determined breath. Kaylin took a step forward, but Mara lifted a hand toward him. Let her try, she whispered. Kaylin paused, jaw tight, but stayed back. Astra swung her legs over the side of the bed and placed her feet on the floor. They wobbled, weak but ready. Mara kneeled in front of her. Remember how you breathed with Papa? Slow and steady. You're safe. Astra nodded, inhaled, and stood shakily. Her knees trembled, but she didn't fall. Mara's voice softened. Good, Astra. Now, step toward me. Astra took a small step, 1 foot forward, deliberate and careful. Then another. Then another. Her entire body shook, but her face glowed with pure pride. Kaylin's face twisted with emotion. Astra. Astra giggled breathlessly. Papa, I'm doing it. I'm doing it by myself. Mara held her hands out, ready to catch her but letting her lead. Astra reached her and collapsed into her arms, laughing. Naira clapped from her bed. Astra, you're so strong. Astra smiled shyly. Your turn. Naira inhaled deeply and stepped off the bed with Kaylin's help. She placed both feet onto the soft mat. Mara crouched down beside her. Naira, the forest lives inside you. You are the guardian. Your strength comes from deep roots. Naira closed her eyes, gripping the feather tightly. I am the guardian. Exactly. Mara lowered her voice. Now stand tall, and feel the ground support you. Naira planted her feet and straightened with surprising stability. Very good. Mara smiled. Now lift one foot. Naira wobbled, but her face remained focused. She placed her lifted foot down slowly, not crashing, not losing control. Astra clapped excitedly. Naira, that was amazing. Naira's small face lit up with pride. I did it. Papa, did you see? Kaylin knelt in front of her, voice choked. I saw, my little shadow. You were incredible. Naira threw her arms around him, and he hugged her tightly. Mara watched the embrace, her eyes warm. Now, she said, we do something together. Mara arranged fabric pieces and stones on the floor, forming a circular space in the middle of the mat. Astra, Mara said, this circle is your sky. Naira, this is your forest. She smiled. And today, the sky and forest must connect. The twins exchanged curious glances. How? Astra asked. By walking toward each other, Mara said simply. By meeting in the middle. Astra's eyes widened. Walking, a whole circle? Naira whispered, I can't do that. Kaylin stepped forward, voice soft but firm. Yes, you can. Mara nodded gently. I'll help you both. But you must take the first step. Astra moved first. One step. Then another. Slow but steady. Naira followed, determined, breath slow and controlled. Their legs trembled like baby deer. Their arms stretched out for balance. Sweat formed on their small foreheads. Mara guided them softly. Good. Keep breathing. You're doing exactly what you need to do. Kaylin watched, entire body tense with hope and fear. He had never seen them move so much, never seen so much life in their steps. Astra reached halfway across the circle. Naira reached halfway too. They met at the center. Astra held out her wooden star. Naira held out her feather. They touched them together. Something warm pulsed between them, not magic, but unity. Astra whispered, we're connected. Naira nodded. Like Mama said. Mara's voice softened. Exactly. The sky and forest are always connected. Kaylin stepped forward and kneeled, placing his large hands over theirs. I'm proud of you, he whispered. It was the first time he'd said those words out loud to them. And the girls glowed brighter than any magic. After several minutes of rest, Astra and Naira sat beside each other on cushions, their breathing calm and proud. Mara sat across from them. Now we'll do one last thing today. Astra leaned forward eagerly. Magic. Mara shook her head. Not magic. Listening. Naira tilted her head. Listening to what? Mara tapped her own chest. To the power inside you. It's not a thing you force. It's not a thing you control. It's something you feel. Something that responds to your emotions. Astra nodded slowly. Like stars respond to wishes. Mara smiled. Exactly. Naira added softly, and forests respond to whispers. Mara nodded again. Let's try this. Astra, close your eyes. Naira, you too. They obeyed. Put your hands on your lap. Breathe. And imagine the moment you stood today. The strength in your legs. The courage in your heart. Astra's breath deepened. Naira's face softened. Good, Mara whispered. Now imagine that strength glowing inside you. A calm silence filled the room. Kaylin leaned forward, holding his breath. Then Astra's hands shimmered gold. A soft, tiny glow no bigger than a candle flame flickered between her palms. Naira's hands followed, shadows swirling gently, not cold, not threatening, just alive. The glow and shadow pulsed together like a heartbeat. Kaelin's breath caught in his throat. By the ancestors. Astra opened her eyes and gasped. Papa. Look. I made light. Naira followed, eyes wide. And I made shadows, nice shadows. Kaelin knelt between them, voice trembling. You both did magnificent things. The twins beamed. Mara wiped a tear from her eye. This is healing. Kaelin turned to her, emotion raw in his gaze. This is a miracle. Mara shook her head softly. No. It's your daughters being who they were meant to be. Kaelin's voice dropped to a soft whisper. Thanks to you. That night, long after the twins were asleep, Kaelin paced the corridor outside their room. Mara stood nearby, leaning against a pillar, arms crossed, tired but content. You should rest, she murmured. Kaelin shook his head. I cannot rest. Not yet. Mara gave him a small smile. Because you're happy. Kaelin frowned. Happiness is unfamiliar. Mara chuckled softly. You'll get used to it. But before Kaelin could answer, a sudden gust of wind blasted through the hallway, extinguishing the torches. Kaelin stiffened instantly, eyes glowing. Mara froze. Then a voice, a cold, mocking whisper, echoed through the shadows. Ah. So the princesses finally stir. Kaelin's eyes narrowed. Show yourself. Smoke rippled at the end of the hall. A tall figure stepped from the darkness, a man with pale grey skin, black markings up his neck, and a wicked, crooked smile. Mara's breath froze. Kaelin's did not. He growled, Ravano's. Ravano's bowed mockingly. My lord. Mara stiffened. Who is he? Kaelin's voice became ice. My cousin. Ravano's smirked. And your rightful successor, if those little half-blood children of yours graciously fade away. Mara's heart dropped. He wanted them weak. Ravano's shrugged. Someone had to ensure they never inherited the Shadow Dominion. Their power would surpass even yours. Kaelin's eyes blazed with fury. You put a siphoning spell on newborns. On my daughters. Ravano's chuckled. And it worked beautifully. Their powers never awakened, until. He pointed at Mara. Until this human ruined everything. He raised his hand, and a dark pulse shot forward. Kaelin moved faster than lightning, throwing a wave of shadow fire that collided with Ravano's attack. The explosion rocked the hall. Run, Mara, Kaelin roared. But Mara didn't run. She stood her ground, trembling but defiant. You hurt children, she whispered. You monster. Ravano's sneered, their weakness was necessary. Kaelin's voice shook the walls. You will never touch them again. Ravano's lunged. Kaelin met him head-on. Shadows clashed. Fire exploded. The walls cracked. Mara darted behind a pillar, heart pounding, watching the battle unfold with terror and helpless fury. Ravano's hurled Kaelin back against the stone floor. You always were soft, he taunted. Attachment makes kings weak. Kaelin rose, blood running down his lip. Attachment makes kings unstoppable. And in that moment, Astra and Naira's voices echoed from the nursery. Papa. Ravano's grinned. How lovely. They are awake. Kaelin's eyes flared. You will not go near them. But Ravano's stepped toward the nursery. Mara moved before Kaelin could stop her. She stood in front of the nursery door, arms spread wide, trembling but fierce. You'll go through me first, she said. Ravano's laughed cruelly. Gladly. He raised his hand. Kaelin roared, No. A burst of shadow fire shot toward Mara. And stopped midair. Floating. Suspended. Not by Kaelin. By Astra and Naira. They stood in the doorway behind Mara, tiny hands glowing, Astra in gold, Naira in soft shadow. Ravano's eyes widened. Impossible. Astra whispered, Don't hurt Mara. Naira whispered, Don't hurt Papa. Their powers swirled together in a brilliant pulse. And Ravano's was thrown across the hall, slamming into a pillar with a sickening crack. Mara spun in shock, staring at the twins. Girls, how did you? Astra smiled shakily. We listened to our magic. Naira nodded. Like you taught us. Kaelin rushed to them, scooping his daughters into his arms. My brave girls. Ravanos groaned on the floor, trying to rise. Kaelin's voice deepened with lethal finality. You will never harm this family again. He unleashed a surge of shadow fire. Ravanos vanished into smoke, banished, broken, beaten. The hall fell silent. Mara approached the twins, tears of relief streaming down her face. Are you both okay? Astra giggled weakly. We protected you. Naira nodded proudly. Because we're strong now. Kaelin looked at Mara, really looked at her. His voice, quiet and full of depth, whispered. You didn't just heal them, Mara Wren. You awakened them. The smoke from Ravanos's attack still hung in the air, drifting through the ruined hallway like thin grey ghosts. Chunks of shattered stone littered the floor, and scorch marks streaked the walls. The torches had been blown out, leaving the hall dim except for the faint glow of Astra's light and the soft pulse of Naira's shadows. Kaelin stood at the center of the destruction, his daughters held tightly against his chest. His powerful shoulders rose and fell with rage and fear. His eyes glowed like twin silver flames. Mara, he said tensely, not looking away from the smoke where Ravanos had vanished. Take the twins inside the nursery. Mara nodded, reaching for Astra and Naira's hands. Come here, sweethearts. Stay close. But Astra pulled away quietly. Papa, he's not gone. Naira's eyes darkened, voice trembling. He's hiding, in the shadows. Kaelin froze. Mara's breath caught. What do you mean? Astra pointed at a patch of darkness near the far end of the hall. It was nothing but a sliver of shadow, small and still. Until it twitched. Kaelin's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. Girls, behind me. Now. Astra and Naira obeyed immediately, slipping behind their father's legs. Mara stepped back with them, her heart hammering so hard she felt it in her throat. The shadow rippled. And Ravanos stepped out, breath ragged, eyes burning with hatred. You think you've won, he hissed. You think two children can overpower a true blood-born heir? They are half-breeds. Weak. Naira flinched. Astra stiffened. Kaelin stepped forward with lethal calm. Say that again. Ravanos sneered. They are nothing. Something inside Kaelin snapped like a bone. His aura exploded outward, an immense wave of shadow fire, sweeping across the hall, turning the cold air molten. Mara grabbed the girls and backed against the wall as the shadows roared like a storm around Kaelin. Ravanos laughed, mocking him. You can't kill me. You won't risk losing control in front of them. That was true before, Kaelin growled. Not anymore. He launched forward. Their powers collided, Kaelin's shadow fire against Ravanos's venomous dark energy. The explosion shook the entire fortress. Windows cracked. Tiles shattered. The entire hall shuddered under the force of ancient supernatural fury. Mara covered the twins with her body, shielding their heads as pieces of marble crashed to the floor. Astra cried out, Papa. Naira whimpered, his hurt. Mara looked up. Kaelin had been thrown across the hall, slamming violently into a pillar that cracked under the impact. He slid to the ground, blood dripping from his lip. Ravanos staggered, but he was still standing. Still smirking. Your power is fading, cousin. Kaelin pushed himself to his feet with a snarl. My power is ancient. But weakening, Ravanos taunted. You burn yourself out trying to protect them. Kaelin's gaze shot to the twins. His daughters. His life. His reason for breathing. Ravanos raised his hand, power gathering in his palm like a swirling sphere of death. Let me help you, Kaelin, he whispered darkly. Let me free you of this burden. He aimed directly at the twins. Astra screamed. Naira cried out. Mara gasped and threw her arms around them. Kaelin moved too slow. Ravanos unleashed the attack. A massive wave of shadow energy ripped toward the girls. But it never hit. Because Astra and Naira stepped in front of Mara at the same time. The girls raised their hands, one glowing gold, the other swirling shadow purple. Two tiny voices whispered together. No. The energy slammed into an invisible wall, Astra's light and Naira's shadows merging into a shimmering barrier. The force spread across the hall like a sparkling dome. Ravanos stumbled back in shock. Impossible. Astra's face tightened in concentration. You won't hurt my father. Naira's voice shook but held firm. Or Mara. A brilliant burst of golden and shadow energy exploded outward, knocking Ravanos off his feet and slamming him into the far wall so hard the stone cracked like an egg. He slid to the ground, wheezing. Kaelan stared at his daughters in stunned awe. You protected yourselves. Astra turned to him with glowing eyes. We protected our family. Naira nodded weakly. Papa, we did it. Kaelan moved forward, scooping them into his arms with a trembling breath. My brave girls, my powerful little ones. Ravanos groaned, dragging himself upright. You think this means they've won? Their power is unstable. They will destroy themselves. Wrong, a voice said sharply. It was Mara. She stepped between Kaelan and Ravanos, fists clenched. You spent years keeping them sick, she spat. But you fail to understand something important. Ravanos glared at her. Mara continued, they aren't weak. They've just been waiting for someone to believe in them. Astra squeezed her father's hand. Naira whispered, Mara believed first. Kaelan looked at her, eyes softening with something deep. Mara took a step forward. You call them half-breeds. Flaws. Mistakes. Her voice sharpened like a blade. But you're wrong. They're evolution. They're the next era. Ravanos sneered. Strong words from a human. Mara didn't flinch. I'm not strong. They are. Astra's light glowed brighter. Naira's shadows swirled around her feet. Kaelan rose, holding the twins' shoulders. Ravanos tried to conjure another attack, but his hands shook. The twins stepped forward, small but fearless. Astra spoke first, voice calm. You hurt Mama. Ravanos's face paled. Naira added, voice trembling with sorrow, you hurt us. Astra held out her palm. Light gathered. Soft. Warm. Growing. Naira held out hers. Shadows curled gently. Deep. Protective. Alive. Together, they whispered. Leave our home. A pulse of combined magic surged forward, not destructive, not cruel, but strong enough to send Ravanos flying. He crashed through the cracked wall and vanished into smoke. Gone. Banished from Blackthorn Hall forever. Silence fell. Mara collapsed to her knees, tears spilling down her cheeks. Kaelan knelt beside her, one hand on her shoulder. It's over. For now. Astra and Naira ran to Mara, hugging her tightly. Astra whispered, we kept you safe. Naira added, just like you keep us safe. Mara hugged them back, voice shaking. I'm so proud of you. Kaelan watched them, his daughters glowing with new strength, and the human woman who had awakened it. Something inside his ancient heart cracked open. Not with fear. With love. And for the first time in centuries, Kaelan Blackthorn felt whole. The next morning, Blackthorn Hall looked different. Brighter. Warmer. Alive. Servants whispered in awe as they passed through the halls. Shadows felt lighter. The cold walls seemed to breathe again. Something deep within the ancient fortress had shifted like a curse had been lifted. Inside the vast dining hall, Kaelan sat at the head of the long table, watching Astra and Naira eat breakfast with surprising vigor. Their cheeks were rosy. Their movements steady. Their smiles wide. Mara sat beside them, pouring warm tea into a small cup. Sip slowly, Astra. Astra giggled. It's hot. Naira poked Astra's shoulder. Sip like this. She demonstrated dramatically. Astra immediately copied her, causing the twins to burst into contagious laughter. Kaelan watched them, stunned. The sound of their laughter, real laughter, filled the hall for the first time in 7 years. Veros entered quietly, eyes widened with shock. My lord, the children. Kaelan nodded. I know. They are alive. They always were, Kaelan said softly. They just needed the right fire to melt the ice. Veros bowed his head, emotion tightening his throat. By the gods, it's a miracle. Kaelan's gaze drifted to Mara. You may thank her, he murmured. Mara looked up at him, cheeks flushing. Kaylin stood and approached her. Mara Wren, he said, voice deep but gentle. You have healed what centuries of magic could not. Mara swallowed, overwhelmed. I only listened. The girls did the rest. No, Kaylin said quietly. You led them. You believed in them when I had forgotten how. Astra hopped off her seat and hugged Mara tightly. She believes in Papa too. Naira joined. She makes him warm. Kaylin's breath hitched. Girls. Mara smiled shyly, brushing Astra's hair behind her ear. Your father has always been warm. Astra giggled, not when he's grumpy. Naira nodded vigorously. Papa is very grumpy. Kaylin pressed a hand over his face. I do not recall raising two comedians. The twins laughed again. Mara laughed too. And Kaylin felt something in his chest soften further. Later that afternoon, Kaylin led Mara to the terrace overlooking the gardens. The sky was bright blue, the air crisp with the scent of pine and sea. He stopped near the railing. Mara, he began softly. She turned. Yes. Kaylin's expression was open, raw, vulnerable, something she had never seen. For years, I thought I needed power to protect my daughters. That only strength could keep them alive. He paused. But you showed me, love is stronger. Mara's eyes shimmered. They just needed you. They needed us, Kaylin corrected gently. All of us. A family. Her breath caught. Kaylin stepped closer. You walked into my fortress without fear, he whispered. You faced my temper. You faced my darkness. You faced Ravano's. He lifted a hand and brushed her cheek lightly. And you stayed. Mara felt warmth spread through her chest. I stayed because they needed me. Kaylin shook his head. No, Mara. They needed you, and I, his voice lowered to a whisper. I needed you too. Her breath trembled. Kaylin. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against hers. Stay, he whispered. Not as a guest. Not as a healer. Not as a passing visitor. He took her hands, his cool fingers wrapping around her warm ones. Stay as their mother. Mara's throat closed with emotion. Stay as my partner. Her heart pounded. Stay as the queen of Blackthorn Hall. Tears filled her eyes. Kaylin. I. Before she could finish, two tiny voices shrieked from behind a pillar. Mara. Papa. Astra and Naira charged onto the terrace, nearly tripping over each other. What are you doing? Astra demanded. Are you kissing? Naira squeaked. Mara blushed violently. Kaylin cleared his throat so loudly the birds flew from the trees. No, he said quickly. We were speaking. Astra crossed her arms. It looked like kissing. Naira nodded. It definitely looked like kissing. Kaylin groaned. Girls. Mara laughed so hard she wiped tears from her eyes. The twins grabbed both her hands. Mara stays with us forever, right? Astra asked brightly. Forever. Naira echoed, eyes wide with hope. Mara looked down at them, two brave little girls who had found their strength, their voices, their future. Then she looked up at Kaylin. Her voice was soft, steady, certain. Yes, she whispered. Forever. Astra cheered. Naira hugged her tightly. Kaylin exhaled a breath that sounded like relief and joy woven together. And Blackthorn Hall, once cold, silent, and haunted, echoed with the warmth of a new beginning. A family. A future. A kingdom reborn from light and shadow. If you want the next book of the story, or a bonus epilogue, I can continue immediately. If you felt chills, if your heart beat a little faster, then you need to stick around. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join me for the next chapter because the world of Blackthorn is only getting darker and sweeter. Don't miss what comes next.